bringing you the most important news of what we read recently and such things.
Okay, I think that's good. Knock it out.
This is the Honey Bear Warehouse coming at you from Austin, Texas. We are here to... Okay, wait. This is the Honey Bear Warehouse, reporting the most important books that we've read lately. Here from Austin, Texas, we have John Barry. John.
Hello.
And I'm Margaret.
The best part of that, I took a sip, because I think what is missing from a lot of YouTube videos is gargling noises.
And burping.
Yeah, I think people really like the sound of swallowing. Yeah.
Wait, Wednesday's here.
Yeah, but she's on like 400. She'll knock everything over if we bring her over here. Look at that. She's about to attack a box. Oh, look at her. Oh no, she's full raccoon
Shrimper!
Right now. You want me to...
Oh, chaos.
I feel like that was representative.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here she is again. Wednesday, you're about to show hole on this.
Hole on Maine. Look at her little scrungly tail.
Yes, that's the most scrungly part of her, sure.
Okay, so what have you been reading lately?
I've read a few books to start the year. I think I finished 9 books.
In January?
Yeah, so far. And I mean, I started reading like 13 or 14 this month.
Mm-hmm.
And a few I didn't finish. But yeah, I think I'm at 9 right now.
Wow.
How about you?
I finished Blood Solace, and now I'm on Blood Sanctuary. So these are the Vela Roth books about the Hesperines and the Vampire Utopia, where they do arts and crafts.
Oh yeah, the as a treat books you were talking about.
As a 30-hour treat. So I'm almost done with the second one that I've read this year. Have I read another book?
Well, we've been listening to Project Hail Mary.
And it's really good. Really good.
I think some of it's compelling. I could do without the Earth parts. I thought it was fun when we had Ryland and Strat just talking to each other, but I really don't care about any of the other characters.
Oh, interpersonal relationships?
Well, it's not the interpersonal relationships. It's just I don't know, by the time they introduced other people, it's okay, we get it. Strat's important. I'm kind of tired of seeing the repetitive Strat being important and people being no, but I'm important too. And then the astronauts themselves feel pretty boring.
We don't know anything about them yet.
I know, and I think that's a problem because they've showed up a few times at this point.
That's
it's
true.
Boris is the only other character from the pre Project Hail Mary timeline I care about. And that's because he's fun,
He's the Russian guy?
Yeah, he's the one that melted the giant block of silicon with
for
spin
funsies?
drives. Yeah.
For funsies. Hey, and you know what? I'm about to say some spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled for Project Hail Mary, then don't listen to this.
Yeah, I loved that.
I really like the alien that we know
Rocky?
so far,
Yeah.
Rocky. I think it's really cool to think about things that don't have sight, but have very developed other senses, and the way that Rocky communicates. It's we have creatures on this planet that do not see, but we never really think about what that would mean if they were as sentient as people. So I think that's interesting.
I think how kind of simple and formulaic it is, how there really aren't stakes. I like that, It's they're gonna find a solution. Everything's gonna end up happy. At least so far. I don't know that now, but I mean that seems like the sort of book we're reading.
I'm scared.
Oh, you're scared? You think there's a chance that they're not gonna be able to fix the astrophages?
Well, I think they'll save the planet, but I think that I'm scared that one of our characters will die.
Oh, I think that is a chance. I think that either one of Ryland or Rocky will die. I think it's more likely you get a fake out in this one. I don't think we're talking like a...
And I will cry.
Yeah, I think this is a book that's probably not actually trying to establish emotional stakes, right? Because, like, if it was that sort of book, we would have gotten the backstory on the astronauts first, so that it was heavier hitting when they were found dead at the beginning of the book, you know? It's like, I don't think this is the sort of book that actually wants us to reckon with the consequences of actions. And, like, I don't think things are meant to have tragic outcomes. Yeah, this is like humans are cool. Science, awesome. Feel good, brother, you know?
This is from our local expert in Gen Lit.
True. I think I do read a lot of sad fiction. So it's just not giving me that sort of vibe. Like, I don't think this book wants you to feel bad feelings, at least for any, like, extended period of time.
Okay, well, here's one. If it's not trying to get us to feel feelings, why are we so rapt?
I don't know. It's like cocaine.
All the time.
The pacing is crazy. It's...
Every
I'm
word.
so invested. It's like I've said, I think... Frederick Bachman is another author who's really capable of doing that, where the stories don't feel like they have stakes. I don't really feel like there are consequences to actions, but it's so hard to not be incredibly invested in what's happening. They're just kind of puppet masters with narrative, I feel like. I don't think that there are stakes, really, but I think it's so propulsive and the pace is so addicting that we're just like, oh, I want to know what happens. It's like when you solve a problem, right? Like, even if it's a problem you know how to solve.
Jesus Christ.
Wednesday's really popping off over there. Well, I mean, we're giving them the gurgles, we're giving them the gulps,
we're giving them the from the kitchen, the
crashes from the kitchen, the shakes. This is an entire visual, audio, spatial sort of experience. This is the 4D that we're getting in theaters,
yeah.
You know?
Soon you're going to be able to smell his burps from burping
up
that's
the... true. I can already feel it. I'm like, I don't know, 10% of the way through this, so I have half of the world's carbon dioxide supply in my stomach.
And you know what? That would be really important for astrophage.
That's true.
So
I'm where astrophage reproduces.
You are. I don't drink those because they give me heartburn. And I wanted to just put that out there in the universe.
Yeah, they're not good.
I drink the drink of angels.
And these are here because nobody wants them. So I'll drink it.
I did actually really like them for a little bit. Kind of fixated on them. Drank a whole 12-pack. About another 12-pack. Months.
So what do you like about Project Hail Mary? What do you...
For some reason, and I wonder... It's very interesting listening to this with you because you have a background in physics, math, and you've also been interested in various astro things, astrophysics, astronomy, astrology.
No, I mean, we're all interested in
astrology. Well,
that's not true, actually. One of the books I just finished had a lot of astrology in it.
You read a book with astrology in it?
Yeah.
Cringe. Anyway, it's interesting listening to it with you because you have an opinion on the math.
Yeah, you know.
He'll do a calculation and he's like, that's not the relative speed of light.
That's not what I say. But yeah, they play a little...
Okay, what do you say?
I don't remember exactly, but they do play a little fast and loose with some of the stuff. But I think for the most part, the science is pretty fun. It's like pretty basic stuff.
So how do we have this author that is writing a book that we are like clinging to every sentence, so invested in every single thing that happens next, and also wants to talk about the math part of it? Because here's the thing, if maybe, what's his name that wrote it?
Andy Weir.
If Andy Weir was what I was listening to right before I went to math class in high school, I might have paid attention more.
Well, I mean, I think lots of people like accessible math.
There's a certain point in which if I can't immediately do it and get that satisfying answer of like, yes, excellent, then it's a little bit like explaining board games without being able to see them. And it's like, here are the rules of the board game. You can't see the board or anything. I feel like a book like this would be a peek at the board. Women in STEM. I'm solving it right now.
Yeah.
The thing is, give it a story. Make it interesting.
I mean, I
Stakes.
think that they're skipping
There
over
are
a
no
lot of the
stakes.
stuff. There aren't any stakes.
Humanity is on the line.
Nominally, humanity is on the line. It doesn't feel like there's any chance humanity doesn't come out of this. Oh, we've got Noodle. We've got Noodle.
Oh no! She's gonna show Hall of Maiden.
No. No, she's demure. She's cutesy.
Noodle.
Oh, no. Oh. Oh, Noodle. But yeah, I think it's really good. I'm really interested in, you know, what happens with the narrative. I do think in this type of book, shape of our emotions, there is going to have to be something tragic that happens.
Yeah.
Tragic. But I think it'll be resolved pretty quickly.
I do wonder. Spoiler alert! Go back and put a spoiler
well,
before
that's
that.
that's not a spoiler. That's literally like 15 pages into the book.
Okay, well, 15 pages into the book, spoiler. All the other astronauts are dead, and he doesn't know why, and he's woken up from his coma.
Okay. Spoilers here.
He listened to some without me, and
When Ryland finds his two co-astronauts dead, that's not a spoiler. That happens like super early.
but why are they dead?
We don't know.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. That's the mystery. I'm like, why did they die? I'm very invested in that. But the thing is, what's the author's name?
Andy Weir.
Andy Weir has, I know. Andy Weir has reminded us quite a few times that they're just desiccated mummies lying in those two beds.
They're not in the two beds. They got ejected out of the airlock.
So he doesn't have the dead bodies anymore?
No. He doesn't use the beds for anything.
So here's
out of
one.
respect, but-
I thought that he wasn't using the beds because they were still in there.
Oh, no. It's just like a purely ceremonial.
See, I come from a background in reading horror books, and I'm used to people keeping their corpses right there with them for later when they
True.
need to use their corpses.
True, yeah, that wasn't very... Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Noodle, don't do it. Don't do it. We'll get banned from YouTube. Oh, they definitely got that. You're going to have to cut that out. Good luck finding that in editing.
Ew. I think we'll find it because it was somewhat after a noodle thing that happened.
But yeah, I think I like these sort of like comfort books that are just like, hey, let's go through some pretty low level emotions pretty quickly. Let's hit that sort of stuff.
Okay. At the very beginning of this year, he was like, I do not like genre fiction. I only like, what is it called? The one
General fiction, literary fiction.
Literary fiction, that's what I'm trying to think of. Because you say gen fic and you're like, which one?
Yeah.
Literary fiction, and he's like, I don't like any genre fictions. Margaret, tell me which ones to read. Of course I'm handing him things that he's spitting on and then handing back to me covered in his spit. And I'm like,
Oh, yeah. So the ranking of just like types of fiction I enjoy, literary fiction's definitely at the top. I would say historically, science fiction has always been number 2.
Dune.
Yeah, Dune, like the Ender's Game series, especially the first 3 books. I like science fiction. As far as genre fiction goes, I would say it's definitely my favorite. Then you have a pretty...
Justice for Gideon.
Oh, hold on. There's not a significant step down. I think the next step down is historical fiction, which I do like, generally. I like historical fiction quite a bit. Then we have a pretty significant drop down into the type of genre fiction I'm like, I don't like, and I need to figure out what I like here. So like fantasy, romance, thrillers, mystery. Like just generally those are things I'm not into.
The abject. The things you feel viscerally.
Yeah.
In your own body.
Yeah.
The heart rate is moving, which is something I like. I think it's the only way that I can deal with the anxieties of the world around me is microdosing it.
The issues with like these other genre fiction, so like fantasy specifically, because I think it's weird to not like fantasy. That's something that I think if you read fiction, it's generally one of the genres people are pretty into. There's just so much time and space on a page dedicated to describing things, And like I can't picture things. I'm just like, I don't care. Whereas something like historical fiction, I think it's just assumed you have some sort of idea of what things looked like back then. Science fiction, they generally don't try and describe things too in detail because
They can't.
I think once
The
you're
math and the science are made up, but if you look too closely, it all falls apart.
I think if you get
has to
too
be a little
into
vague.
the weeds with science
Yeah.
fiction, it's just it kind of falls apart. And then Litfic is just usually not very interested in the external.
It's very internal, not very external.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about illustrations?
I kind of find them distracting. It's hard for me to deal with words and images at the same time. So like graphic novels don't really work for me that well.
I do find them because it's hard to focus on what part am I supposed to be reading.
And I do read
I will say.
a non-trivial amount of manga, but I honestly lots of times think they would be better as light novels, you know, just without.
He said it. You heard it here.
So, I don't know. I think the art work in these things can be pretty on their own, but it's just really hard for me to enjoy the images and the text at the same time. It's like I have to read the text and then look at the pictures. Like, I don't know.
You see, something like an illustration in a novel, like at the beginning of a Harry Potter, for reference, that little thing at the top, messes with me because I'm vividly picturing in my head what people and things look like. And then I see the illustration and I'm like, what?
Yeah, I immediately forget what it was because I can't picture it in my head. You know, so like it generally doesn't do anything to alter my appreciation outside of what was on the back of the original Philosopher's Stone by it was like
Wizzy the Wizard?
Wizzy is
Deep cut Harry Potter trivia.
Yeah.
The back of the first British edition publishing of Harry Potter and the source in the Philosopher's Stone was a random wizard named Wizzy by an illustrator who already had illustrated that wizard named Wizzy. Nothing to do with Harry Potter. So that's who that is.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that.
We love Wizzy.
As imagery, that's what I want every image in a novel to be, is completely disconnected from the narrative.
I was thinking that. I think, you know, if there was maybe a more poetic thing, like a chapter of like, okay, maybe this is a little too trite, but say a broken vase and like water spilling out of it. And then something happens in the chapter that is, you know, the dissolution of a relationship, a secret coming out, something like that. A more poetic illustration might work for me.
Yeah, no, I want complete disconnect.
Shall we talk about what's next?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't even talked about what I've read, really.
All 9!
Yeah. The first one I finished this year was Martyr. It's good.
He loved it.
I did. Next, I read Cruel Prince, which is over there somewhere. Right there.
Between Black Hole and Tommy.
Yeah. Enhance.
Enhance. Zoom in.
And I didn't love it. I'm not a fantasy girly, you know?
Wrong. I don't understand. So with The Cruel Prince, I would say I was equally enthralled as I am with the Hail Mary Project, where I'm just like, I have to know what happens next. I'm so invested. Maybe it's because The Cruel Prince is almost all political machinations.
The narrative was really boring for me, and I didn't care about any character except for Vivi and Madoc, who,
great.
after the beginning of the book, really weren't in it. I thought Jude was pretty off-putting in the sense that, like, she's a dumb teenager doing dumb teenage things.
I think she's an anti-hero.
No, I don't think I think she's deliberately written to be, like, empowering.
I mean, I guess because she really is quite scrappy.
I just didn't care about any of the characters. So yeah, maybe
So
the
he's
fact
not
that
going to
it
be
is
reading the
interpersonal-
second book to see what happened between Taryn and the guy,
Yeah,
the Lost Sisters.
I would just say it wasn't for me, you know? Didn't love it. After that,
Wrong.
was The Villagers, or Wasipungo, which is a bottom 5 book I've ever read. So that one wasn't great. After that was Leviathan Wakes, which was science fiction. I don't know. It started off so good. The book was probably 200 pages longer than it needed to be. So, like, the main characters weren't super well developed. They were kind of archetypal sorts of characters. One was like a hard-boiled detective, and one was like the hero trope. And that works pretty well in shorter works, but, like, bruh, I'm not trying to spend that much time in a hard-boiled detective's head, you know?
I guess so, yeah.
I mean,
it's kind of a thick book, isn't it?
Yeah, it was like 500 or 600 pages. I don't have an issue with books being long. You can be 600 pages. I don't really care. But the characters just weren't very interesting, and they were about 40% of the runtime. Was like POV, internal stuff with these characters, and they're not developing or interesting. But the story, the narrative, was actually pretty good. I liked the whole, like, proto-molecule, the mystery part of it. Didn't like the Julie thing. That was cringe as hell. The core mystery to start the book is, well, there are two. The boring-ass hero is trying to figure out who killed his original ship, and Miller, the detective, is trying to find this lady named Julie, and eventually their narratives come together. But Miller, like, falls in love with some idea he has of Julie. It's pretty cringe. I think it's supposed to be pretty tropey, which is fine if you're in like a 250-page pulp novel, but 600 pages, rip.
That, like, detective TV shows were my thing for like a full year. Like, every time I was watching something on my phone, it was a detective TV show.
Like what?
Broadchurch type of things.
Okay.
Marcella type of things.
Okay.
Anyway, so I don't know. I really like the beats of a mystery with a detective.
Yeah,
a hard-boiled detective.
I don't think that it's bad. I do think that when you try and stretch it out over the number of pages they tried to fill with it, it really doesn't work, especially if there's no kind of nuance to the detective character. He's really tropey, really archetypal. Like, the thing that ends up happening when they come together, both of their mysteries turn into something else, which is interesting. I think
I like that.
That works. I just think once we got the new kind of super mystery, no more internal point of view. Who cares anymore? These characters are boring.
That's what happens, I think, that's what I was talking about in my video about fantasy writers writing themselves into a war. Mm-hmm. Someone in a detective novel having a much bigger mystery that perhaps even involves all of the characters. And then we lose the part of the book that was interesting, which was the internal.
It's the opposite. I think the internal was really boring. I thought it started off really promising. It just did not end well for me. And I think before that was maybe my first DNF. I think I tried to read Red Rising before that. I only made it like 60 pages into Red Rising. I thought it was incredibly bad. That it was badly written. Okay. I thought it was boring.
By Pierce Brown.
Yeah.
Show them the book.
Oh, we want
show
to
them the offender.
detailed review. Breaking news. Did not like Red Rising. Then, the next book I tried to read, I also DNF'd, which was Creation Lake by Rachel Kushner. This one wasn't bad, like Red Rising was. I didn't care.
As far as I'm aware, people really like that one. Why do you think they like it?
I don't know. I don't know. But it was functionally two different viewpoints as I was going through it. It was our narrator. She's like a corporate spy, essentially, trying to infiltrate some leftist ex-hippie group in the south of France. And then you get these kind of interludes from the leader of the group she's trying to infiltrate. They're like these pseudo-psychology, pseudo-sociological sorts of things, like this alternative history for Neanderthals. I actually thought that part was interesting. So I think
One of those where it's like, what if Neanderthals had actually evolved?
He's talking about why he thinks Neanderthals are superior to Homo sapien.
And yet extinct.
Right, and I think that we were building up to how that happened, and I never got to it. But I thought that part was kind of interesting. I mean, obviously it was all like...
Put your spoilers in the comments. I want to know.
So I think if you related more to the kind of narrator being a functional drunk, I don't know. I think if you are more invested in her part of the narrative, it's probably a very good book, because I did like...
Sounds like to me a little bit of Jessica Jones, a little bit of Killing Eve.
Yeah.
A little bit of corporate espionage. God, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that the character is written to intentionally be less interesting than those characters. I don't think Rachel Kushner failed at what she was trying to do. I just didn't want to read what she was trying to do. As opposed to, what's this guy's name? Pierce Brown? I think he failed. I think he did not do what he was trying to do.
Sorry, boy. Okay, do the next book.
Next, I read Station 11. Didn't love it.
I hate this.
Yeah, I did not love Station 11. I thought it was...
Okay, I didn't read the book, so very funny thing that happened. I watched the TV show, and the TV show is very good. It's one season, and it's short, which is great. Apparently in the book, you spend a lot more time with that actor that dies in the first scene.
Oh, I can't... What's his name?
Arthur?
Richard? Arthur something. He's like a pretty significant portion of the book, and he is completely uninteresting.
And the interesting part of this book is the fact that basically the world ended and it's 20 years in the future. And all of Arthur's life happens before the world ends. So
Yeah.
choose a story. Obviously, the television show did. And that's probably why I liked it.
What was the girl's name? I guess she's probably
I don't remember the
17
girl.
now, or maybe like an adult.
No,
But
she's like 22 now. Well,
her story was pretty interesting. I didn't care about... I can't remember any of their names.
the guy that became a doctor?
Yeah, his was fine. I don't know. It didn't do much for me.
I liked the airport part as well.
The airport was... I mean, it was probably like the last third of the book, so it was...
Did the kid have Wikipedia downloaded? The prophet downloaded all in the TV show. He downloads all of Wikipedia on his Switch. And it's how they did everything in the airport. It's how they did all of their electricity. It's how they did their water purification. It's how they lived for decades.
No, I don't think that's how it happened.
The kind of thing you would hope someone would take the time to do right before the world ends is download all of Wikipedia so you can know how that thing works.
Yeah, I don't think that's how it happened.
Know what that thing do. Okay, next book.
The next book I read was Mammoth by Ava Baltazar. This book was fine. You're kind of in the head of what feels like a sociopath, honestly. She just doesn't really seem to have the correctly calibrated sense of emotions. And it starts with pretty relatable stuff where she's trying to get away from contemporary society, which I think everyone kind of relates to that. But she ends up out here, and then there's I don't know, there's a domestic cat hunting scene in here, and I'm like, that's not for me.
Not in this warehouse.
That's not for me.
Not in this warehouse.
But it was well written.
Delete.
I think.
I hate that.
Yeah, I don't like that either. Around this time, I also DNF'd something called Chrysalis, which is a lit RPG sort of thing. I don't get the genre. It's not for me.
So choose your own adventure?
No, it's kind of fantasy, but it has the mechanics of traditional tabletop RPGs, so they're stats and things like that, and you level up.
The worst part of tabletop gaming.
No, the worst part of tabletop gaming is combat. That's the worst part.
I think it's
Incredibly
the rules.
Boring. It's like fantasy, but more boring.
Well, hang on. So one thing that could be good for is having a language that or a world that you don't have to explain to people, because so many people have played Dungeons and Dragons. If it was indeed that world with those rules, then there would be a ton of people who have quite a bit of context already for what that's like.
Right, but like 10% of the runtime of the book is describing you leveling up.
Which I don't like doing in Baldur's Gate either.
Yeah, or generic encounters. And it actually cuts out a fair amount of the narrative. I only made it like 20% of the way in, so maybe I just gave up too soon, but...
You're a quitter.
I am a quitter. If I don't like something, I will just bail.
And I will forget that I don't like it and finish it anyway.
Yeah.
And then realize I'm uncomfortable after I finish.
And it doesn't even have to be like a visceral dislike. Actually, I'm more likely to finish something I viscerally dislike because it just makes me feel something. But if I'm bored, it's like you only have a limited amount of time on this earth, you know? I'm gonna spend it listening to a book I don't care about.
I just don't understand how you don't like things like horror and romance.
What do you mean?
You're like, it has to be interesting. And I'm like, oh, those are the things that make the blood move.
I don't need to be titillated necessarily.
Okay. You heard it here first. John Barry doesn't like to be titillated. Next book.
The next book I read was Awe. It's a Maori word. I don't really know how to pronounce it.
Probably Awe.
It's a lot.
There's a bird on the cover.
Yeah. The birds have very little to do with the narrative outside of somebody carving birds off of a body at some point.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Spoilers. At some point in the book, one of the POV characters carves bird tattoos off of her body in the middle of a suicide attempt.
Ew.
Yeah, and then...
How is this not horror?
Because it's just one of those, like, trauma porn books, a la A Little Life or something, where just, like, a constant stream of terrible things happen to people because we're, like, inhabiting the fetish of the author.
Maybe it's their way of microdosing reality is to...
Well, they're macrodosing it. There's nothing micro about this. It really revels in the violence and a lot of distasteful things. There's like 4 miscarriages in it.
Jesus.
Maybe 3. I think it's 3.
How distasteful, we've said.
Yeah, but it's kind of sad because it's like really beautifully written. Like the writer is very talented as opposed to like, what's her name? Yanagihira, whoever wrote A Little Life, who's just like a bad writer. Like this person actually seems like they did some research. They're a talented writer in terms of constructing prose. Their style's good.
Becky Manawatu?
Yeah, I think that if Becky Manawatu wrote content I cared more about, she'd be able to produce like a 5-star book. She's really her writing was beautiful. It was just, the violence was about 400 steps beyond what I need in a book.
How did that compare to reading Bury Your Gaze and you texting me in a panic because scary stuff was happening and I said it wasn't scary?
Well, yeah, I think that was more the fact I said I don't want to read anything like super violent right now, and you're like, oh, nothing happens in the book.
There's no violence.
And so like I'm going through it, and then like
violence.
at some point some dude's getting like every joint in his body shattered with a sledgehammer and had his tongue cut out.
In a funny way.
Yeah. This is kind of spooky, but it's fun. And then eventually like, bro, what the fuck is happening here?
I love it. It's my favorite book.
Yeah, I think maybe if you had said, hey, it gets
a little turned up,
a little violent towards the end, I wouldn't have been quite so upset. And then the last book I've read is Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead. A lot of astrology. I did not love the astrology in it.
Wait, did they have any hot takes on different star signs?
I'm going to be honest, my eyes kind of glazed over once I was getting through the astrology, especially like halfway through the book when it started getting really dense. Anytime I saw her talking about star charts, I was just like...
What did they say about Libras?
I don't know.
What did they say about Cancers?
I don't know that they said anything about cancers. Maybe I would have locked in for that if I saw it. But it is an interesting kind of investigation of who has the right to live? What does it mean to die?
Libras.
But my God, there was so much astrology. And I wasn't expecting it. And astrology is pretty boring.
You can say it again.
Astrology is boring.
You can say it again.
Astrology, boring. Still deciding how I feel about it. But I have not collected my thoughts yet. There were some parts I really liked and some parts I really disliked. So don't know where I'm landing on it yet.
I was thinking it would be fun in the book videos for me to read a bit of Cher's memoir sometimes.
It could be interesting. It's crazy. This book is, like, you look at it and you're like, oh, this looks like a regular 350-page novel or book. And it's like
20 pounds.
20 pounds. It's crazy how heavy it is. Like, it just looks normal.
Part
like,
one.
Like, if you look at this, it's like, it's the same, it's basically the same thickness.
This one's floating.
Yeah.
This one's
I don't
sinking.
understand. I don't understand what Cher did. She made this out of like plutonium or something. So I started the Murderbot Diaries, which is supposed to be like autism representation, which is interesting because so far it's about a murder bot, which...
And that is autism representation as far as I'm aware. I've read The Stranger.
Yeah. And then Crocodile in the Sandbanks. I'm only like 20 pages into each.
Guy at the bookstore loved that one.
He said he loved the series. He said it took a while to get started, and there are 20 books in here. So far, it feels like it's going to be a parody.
Well, guess what? It took Cher 25 years before a steaming bath didn't want to make me cry.
Oh no. I don't want to know what came before that, Cher.
There was a time when we were so broke that my saddle shoes were literally falling apart and had to be padded with cardboard to stuff up a hole and wrapped with rubber bands to keep the soles from flapping. It was so Dickensian.
Oh, do you remember that Target over in Roscoe Village when you got off the bus and your shoes disintegrated?
Yeah, the second... We hadn't even moved to Chicago yet. I was visiting John to look for apartments while I still lived here, and he was working up there. I stepped off the bus to go walk to the Airbnb, and the soles of my shoes stayed in the snow. So I had to limp across a parking lot with broken glass and ice, and I got these fake Uggs, which have served me well for now 4 years.
So you and Cher, more alike than you ever would have known.
Yeah. So Dickensian. So what's coming up next for you, Joan?
Well, I'll probably finish Project Hail Mary, which we're listening to. Mm-hmm. If this doesn't get better quickly, I'm probably not finishing it, if I'm honest. I'll finish this. Neither of these so far are things I feel like I'm going to love, but I did get this. I got Mongrel, which I don't think that there's a US release of this, but it got really good reviews. So I went to Blackwell's website and I ordered a copy, and I'm excited to read this.
I was like, do we still have the shipping? I think we do, but it's in the trash.
Yeah.
I won't be showing you that.
How about you?
I'm going to keep reading the Velaroth Blood Mercy, Blood Sanctuary, Blood Things, Communion. I don't know what's next. I know there's at least one more book, and they are divided in half on Audible. So I really need to figure out how to not use Audible credits or pay $40 for each one.
Audiobooks are incredibly expensive.
It's not fair. But I mean, it is maybe fair because I think that the narrators deserve to get paid a lot.
Yeah, they do put in full performances. And for the ones they split in half, those are like actually performed, right? It's not even just a narrator doing voices, right? It's usually like full ensembles, which is why they split it up.
Sometimes, and that's not always why they split them up. I think these ones are because they're 30 hours each.
Okay, because I saw the Rebecca Yarros books are split.
Oh.
And I figured that's what they were doing.
I didn't read it that way, but I know you can.
But I saw that it had two different versions. That's why I was under the assumption. There was one that was just the entire book, and then there was another version that was part 1 and part 2. So I assumed one of them had more involved
Yeah.
voice acting, is why it was split.
Yeah. What was the one that I read? Oh, Bury Your Gaze had very involved voice acting from several other fantasy authors and horror authors,
It seems
including T. Kingfisher.
Mr. Tinkle had a lot of fun with that book. Maybe.
Thank you for watching our video. This has been the important news of what we have been reading recently.